All right, this is the copyright disclaimer. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. And this video is not for any monetary gain. It is explicitly for the reasons stipulated in the Copyright Act of 1976 under Section 107.
Viola Fletcher, the oldest living survivor of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, has died. Fletcher was just 7 years old when a white mob destroyed the Greenwood district of Tulsa, once known as Black Wall Street, killing hundreds, burning businesses, schools, and churches, and leaving as many as 10,000 people homeless. Fletcher carried those memories for more than a century. In her later years, she became a national witness to history, speaking with students and journalists and testifying before Congress.
I will never forget the violence of the white mob when we left our home. I still see black men being shot. I hear the screams. I have lived through the massacre every day. Our country may forget this history, but I cannot.
Fletcher was one of 2 survivors who sued the state of Oklahoma seeking damages from the city. Last year, the state's Supreme Court rejected their case, dealing a serious setback to a decades-long fight for reparations. Fletcher's grandson, in confirming her passing, said she had a beautiful smile on her face. She loved life. She loved people. Viola Fletcher was 111 years old.
I'm asking my country to acknowledge what happened in Tulsa in 1921.
The oldest living survivor of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre has died at 111 years old, Viola Ford Fletcher. Now, her grandson told me that when she passed, she had a beautiful smile on her face and that she loved life and people. The Tulsa Race Massacre was when a white mob destroyed Tulsa's Greenwood neighborhood, a thriving black-owned business district at the time. Thousands of black residents were arrested, robbed, beaten, and killed. I actually sat with Fletcher a few times over the years as she and other living survivors pursued a lawsuit against the city of Tulsa and other related departments, alleging they were complicit in the 1921 massacre and that its effects were still being felt today.
I think we should get justice to be fair. I think the court should feel the same way.
In June of 2024, the Oklahoma Supreme Court dismissed that lawsuit, which argued the remaining survivors should be compensated by the city for damages. This is history, though, that is quickly disappearing, but now lives on in her memory. Here's some of what she told me over the years about what she remembers from that day in 1921.
People getting killed and houses, property, schools, churches, and stores getting destroyed with fire, and then someone in the neighborhood saying to leave the neighborhood, if not, we're going to kill all of the black people. It just stays with me, you know. It's just the fear that I have lived in Tulsa since, but I don't sleep all night living there.
This is the book of Obadiah, chapter 1, verse 10, and it reads, For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. Giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rahakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well, and teaching me this 100% truth. Salutations to them and my fellow Akim who labor in this truth, week in and week out on the highways and byways. Also, salutations to the hopeful elect of the scattered 12 tribes of Israel, scattered to the four corners of the earth, that be like unto the speckled bird, also known as your Israelite foreigners, and your so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. To you, I say Shalom. This is your brother Ayashar Barazal, a prophet of doom from the Indianapolis branch of the Great Millstone, coming back at you with another lesson that is edifying to the elect body of the nation of Israel. All right, this scripture It's going into the violence that Esau, Edom, the so-called white man who is the wicked, according to Malachi 1 and 4. Um, and it's talking about his violence against his brother Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, okay, or Yasharallah in the Paleo Hebrew, meaning he, Prince Power, okay? He's a prince of the power, all right? And what I'm going to be covering is an article. It's really a follow-up. We did For Thy Violence Against Thy Brother Jacob on the Black Wall Street or the Tulsa Massacre, Tulsa, Oklahoma Massacre, video number 68, which I will put a link to in a description box so you can go back and watch it. And this is a follow-up to that because of the death of the last survivor, whose name is Viola Ford Fletcher. Okay, and I got this article from Newsbreak. All right, and it says Tulsa, from Tulsa, one of the 1921 Tulsa race massacre's last survivors, Viola Ford Fletcher, dies at age 111, and that's her right there. But first, before I go into this article, I'm going to get into the history of these court battles that they went through. All right. And, oh, I think it disappeared. Hold on for a second. Let me catch this. There we go. Okay. So, yeah, it says survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre have gone to court for reparations at different times, most notably in 2003 with a federal lawsuit in 2020 with a state lawsuit. Okay. And you had some in the 1920s and 30s, which were dismissed, by the courts. All right. Not holding the insurance companies. They said the insurance companies couldn't be liable for that. And we know who owns those insurance companies, Amalek. Okay, you had the federal lawsuit in 2003, which was dismissed in 2004. Then you had the state lawsuit in 2020. Okay, and I'll read that one because that's pertinent to what the article is about. It says the last three known survivors, Viola Fletcher, Leslie Benningfield Randall, and Hughes Van Ellis, along with descendants, filed a new lawsuit on September 1st, 2020 in state court. All right. This case was filed under Oklahoma's public nuisance law, arguing that the ongoing harm and racial disparities stemming from the massacre continue to affect the city. Says the lawsuit was ultimately dismissed by the Oklahoma Supreme Court in June 2024, which ruled that the survivors' grievances did not fall within the scope of the state's public nuisance statute, which is some bullshit. But here's the key right here. This is 2024. All right. So let's see what happened before that and why this was dismissed. All right. This was let's see, I had the article in WhatsApp. Let's see here. Pull that back up. Slovakia. All right. This is a House Resolution number 4321. No bailouts actions, no bailouts for reparations acts. Okay, this was done by the 118th Congress that assembled for 2023 and 2024. Okay, now remember, they went to court September 1st of 2020. All right, and once they saw that it was going to go through, this is what happened in 2023. It talks about the committee here, the sponsor who sponsored the bill, Republican Babin Bryan, Republican Texas. Okay, says the House Oversight and Accountability. This was introduced June 23rd, 2023. All right, we'll slide down here and get the guts of it. It says shown here and introduced in the House on 6/23, 2023, 118th Congress, first session. The HR 4321, it says to prohibit the United States government from providing bailouts or other financial assistance to any state or local government that enacts any law providing reparations for slavery and for other purposes. And ironically, almost a year later, the Supreme Court of Oklahoma dismissed that case. All right. So this is what we keep telling you, Jakes. And like her case was, Viola Fletcher's case was, and we've contended through every single one of these For Thy Violence Against Thy Brother Jacob videos that that the United States government or a faction thereof, okay, of any government has always had a hand directly or indirectly being complicit with these atrocities that happen to Jake neighborhoods, specifically, Judah. All right, they have always had their part in it, and here you see it right here in print, House Resolution 4321. Okay, a lot of people didn't know that this hit the floor. All right, the year before that case was supposed to be ruled on, almost a year. This is why you haven't heard anything else about the reparations that California wanted to do. Okay, and I think somewhere near Northwestern Illinois University, that suburb out there, they want to have reparations too. You haven't heard those anymore, and this is the reason why. This bill is sitting on the floor. Okay, ready to be enacted. All right. And Jake continues to believe that these people are going to help us. No, Esau Edom is not going to help the Israelites. They hate us. It's a perpetual hatred, according to Amos 1:11. All right, let me grab that. The book of Amos 1:11. And it reads, Thus saith Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, for 3 transgressions of Edom, and for 4. And that's transgressions is, things that were done to us to bring harm or death, It says, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because he did pursue his brother with the sword. Okay? He did pursue his brother with the sword. And the sword is, today's your modern day gun, nuclear missile, any instrument of death or harm and destruction, and that can extend from legislation, all the way to actual weapons. All right. He says, because he did pursue his brother with the sword and did cast off all pity, had no mercy for us. Okay, and still doesn't to this day. I mean, I'm gonna put a link to that article in the description box, and you can just see, Esau is in there, just gaslighting Jake. You know, first the argument was, there were no, you have to have survivors to give reparations to. They didn't do that for other nations. Okay, they didn't make that stipulation. The survivors were here, 3 of them. And they let them all die and did nothing, and that's okay. That's okay, because the Lord's got something in store for you all. All right. It says, and did cast off all pity, having no mercy, and his anger did tear perpetually. That's continually, nonstop, and he kept his wrath forever. All right, and that wrath goes all the way back to that birthright, that Esau sold for some pretty much some bloody meat in the stew. All right. So yeah, this guy has had no mercy for us. All right, and will not. And it's to a point now, the elect don't expect it. You know, we're hastening the day when the Lord gives us that those spiritual powers to do what we're supposed to do on His behalf. All right, on that's when I say His behalf, that's the behalf of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. All right, He said by the hand of His people. You know, He's going to do some things to Edom. All right. So with that said, let me get to the article. Yeah, and I'll put a link to that bill in the description box too. HR Bill 4321. Jake really needs to look at that, all right, and understand why we're not going to get reparations. All right, so back to the article. It says one of the 1921 Tulsa race massacre's last survivors, Viola Fletcher, dies at age 11. All right, it says Viola Ford Fletcher, who is one of the last survivors of the 1921 Tulsa race massacre in Oklahoma, spent her later years seeking justice for the deadly attack by a white mob on a thriving black community where she lived as a child, has died. She was 111 years old. All right, and this Tulsa race massacre is also known as Black Wall Street. You know, for those who who don't know, you can look that up. 1921. All right, and it says it was a thriving community. You know, we didn't need Esau for a lot of stuff in those early in the 1920s. You know, after during the period of Reconstruction. You know, and I always go back to the movie Harlem Nights with Eddie Murphy. You know, that star-studded cast. That was the same setting, the exact same setting in the early 1920s. And you had that guy, what was his name, who owned the Pity Pat Club? Shit, I forget. But anyway, he had Officer Calhoun to give Sugar Ray, who was played by Richard Pryor, a visit. You know, bottom line is they were upset that he was making a whole lot money than they were. You know, now mind you, uh, the Pity Pat Club and Sugar Ray's Club were on opposite ends of the town. Okay, and none of the same clientele, but they were mad because he was making more money. All right, and they don't like that. They don't like that to this day. Esau doesn't. That's why they try to destroy everything you have. So what did they do? The same pattern we've seen with every For Thy Violence Against Thy Brother Jacob video. They make up some excuse, typically where a Jake or a so-called black man assaulted a so-called white woman, and that was enough for them to justify not only destroying that man, but destroying the whole town that he came from. All right, that's just what they did. All right, and still do. Um, Continuing on with the article, it says her grandson Ike Howard said Monday that she died surrounded by family at a Tulsa hospital. Sustained by a strong faith, she raised three children, worked as a welder in a shipyard during World War II, and spent decades caring for families as a housekeeper. Tulsa was mourning her loss, said Mayor Monroe Nichols, the first black leader of Oklahoma's second largest city. Mother Fletcher endured more than anyone should, yet she spent her life lighting a path forward with purpose. She was 7 years old when the 2 day attack began on Tulsa's Greenwood district on May 31st, 1921, after a local newspaper published a sensationalized report about a black man accused of assaulting a white woman. Same old shit. Yeah, Esau runs the same playbook. It says, as a white mob grew outside the courthouse, black Tulsans with guns who hoped to prevent the man's lynching began showing up. White residents responded with overwhelming force. Hundreds of people were killed and homes were burned and looted, leaving over 30 city blocks decimated in the prosperous community known as Black Wall Street. And like I said, we did a video on this a while back, video number 68. I'll put a link to that video in the description box of this one, okay? It says, I could never forget the charred remains of our once thriving community, the smoke billowing in the air, and the terror stricken faces of my neighbors, she wrote in her 2023 memoir, Don't Let Them Bury My Story. As her family left in a horse drawn buggy, her eyes burned from the smoke and ash, she wrote. She described seeing piles of bodies in the streets and watching as a white man shot a black man in the head, then fired toward her family. All right. And it says, she told the Associated Press in an interview the year her memoir was published that fear of reprisals influenced her years of near silence about the massacre. She wrote the book with Howard, her grandson, who said he had to persuade her to tell her story. We don't want history to repeat itself, so we do need to educate people about what happened and try to get people to understand why you need to be made whole, why you need to be repaired. Howard told the AP in 2024. Says the generational wealth that was lost, the home, all the belongings, everything was lost in one night, gone. And that's the one thing. Esau does not want Jake to have generational wealth. Okay. They want us to always continue to depend on him, being one for all things, as the curses say in Deuteronomy 28. All right, that's our what we have to fulfill, those curses, and we do have to have a need for them for one for all things. All right, it says the attack went largely unremembered for decades. In Oklahoma, wider discussions began when the estate formed a commission in 1997 to investigate the violence. Fletcher, who in 2021 testified before Congress about what she went through, joined her younger brother, Hughes Van Ellis, and another massacre survivor, Leslie Benningfield Randall, in a lawsuit seeking reparations. All right. Says the Oklahoma Supreme Court dismissed it in June 2024, saying their grievances did not fall within the scope of the state's public nuisance statute. Okay. And like I said, that was in June of 2024. Go back to this. That bill, HR Bill 4321, was put on, approximately a year earlier. All right. So they knew that this was coming. All right. And they denied it. It goes on, the article says, for as long as we remain in this lifetime, we will continue to shine a light on one of the darkest days in American history. All right. And there's a lot of dark days in this place's history when it comes to the death of Jake. All right. Fletcher and Randall said in a statement at the time, Van Ellis had died a year earlier at the age of 102. A Justice Department review launched under the Emmett Till Unsolved Civil Rights Crime Act and released in January 2024 outlined the massacre's scope and impact. It concluded that federal prosecution may have been possible a century ago, but there was no longer an avenue to bring a criminal case. It says the city has been looking for ways to help descendants of the massacre's victims without giving direct cash payments. Yeah, right. You know, they don't want to pay up. That's okay. The real payment is coming. I'm going to get to that. It says some of the last living survivors, including Fletcher, received donations from groups, but have not received any payments from the city or state because they were complicit. You know, they were complicit, and that's the thing. They they puff. Esau puffs at his enemies because the power's in his hand, in the hand of the wicked, according to Malachi, Slakia, not Malachi, Job 9:24. All right, it's in his hands right now, and he does what he wants to do, and he puffeth at his enemies, us being the main enemy, according to Psalms 10. All right. It says, the article goes on to say, the fact that she died without any meaningful redress, not for herself, her family, or her community, isn't just a legal failure. It's a moral one. Demario Solomon Simmons, an attorney for the survivors and the founder of the Justice for Greenwood Foundation, said in a statement, said she would not want her passing to be the end of the fight, she said. She would want it to light a fire under all of us. All right. So I'm going to stop right there. The rest of that goes into her background and history. But, hey, just, laying it out there. This is a devil. They saw that this was going to go through and they put that law in place. And the Oklahoma Supreme Court came back and said, no, we're not going to do it. That's okay. All right. With Jake, this is a wake up call. You better realize this devil is never going to help you. This is the book of Psalms, chapter 94. And I'm going to start at verse 20. And it reads, shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee? That throne of iniquity is Esau, Edom. The thee that is talking about is the Israelites, Jake, okay? Which frameth mischief by law. And that was a dirty move. This thing had finally gained some traction in the Supreme Court and Congress when they put that bill forth, or a year before. It says, verse 21, they gather themselves together against the soul of the righteous and condemn the innocent blood. That's exactly what happened when they denied that case. All right. It says, verse 22, but Yahweh Bashem Yahushai is my defense and my power, and the rock is the rock of my refuge. And that's where it is. All right. For those who have the eye salve to see, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai is the only thing we have. We cannot be looking to these governments because it's obvious. Like I said, we've done enough of these videos to make it abundantly clear that the government or any faction thereof has had a hand in our demise. And we see that. All right. They're part of our problem. All right. It says, verse 23, and he shall bring upon them their own iniquity, and shall cut them off in their own wickedness. Yea, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, our power, shall cut them off. So yeah, Esau's going to be cut off because this was a very, very wicked thing for them to do. All right. And the Lord, gets ready to cut them off, cut them out of existence forever. He's going to do it by the hand of his people. All right. The Israelites. This is Ezekiel chapter 25 and begin in verse 12. And it reads, thus saith Yahweh our power, because that Edom have dealt against the house of Judah by taking vengeance, and have greatly offended and revenged himself upon him. All right. So yeah, here's telling you right here, that Edom came heavily against the southern kingdom of Israel. Okay. Judah, Levi, and Benjamin, who are respectively the so-called Negroes, Haitians, and West Indians or Jamaicans. Okay. It says, therefore, thus saith Yahweh our power, I will stretch out mine hand upon Edom, and I will cut off man and beast from it, and I will make it desolate from Teman, and they of Dedan shall fall by the sword. Oh yeah, so George the Lord is about to bring that judgment, in a major way. In a major way. All right. And how did he say he's going to do it? He says, and I will lay my vengeance upon Edom by the hand of my people, Israel. Okay. That's the kingdoms coming back together, both southern and northern. Okay. He says, and they shall do in Edom according to mine anger and according to my fury, and they shall know my vengeance, saith Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, our power. Okay. Yahweh, our power. That's what he says. All right. But you have to understand what state the northern and southern kingdom will be in when the Lord, hey, says, hey, he turns us loose on them. All right. This is the book of Joel, chapter 3, beginning in verse 19. And it reads, Egypt shall be a desolation. Okay. Egypt meaning house of bondage. That's what we are right here. All right. House of bondage. That's what America is for the Israelites. It tells you that in Jeremiah 50 and 33. Judah and Israel should be oppressed together. All right. It says, going back, it says, Egypt shall be a desolation and Edom be a desolate wilderness for the violence against the children of Judah. That's the southern kingdom. Okay. Because they have shed innocent blood in their land. All right. Then it goes on to say, but Judah shall dwell forever and Jerusalem from generation to generation. Okay, so what does that mean? That's the state we're going to be in. If Judah is dwelling forever and Jerusalem from generation to generation, that's us in those immortal bodies, the bodies that, can't die. All right? The bodies that are full of their spiritual power. All right? That's the state we're going to be in after we come down from those chariots. Okay? New Jerusalem. This new city coming down. Yeah, we come to bring judgment. All right? And Esau, Edom is going to be one of the main ones being judged. All right. So back in 20, it says, but Judah shall dwell forever and Jerusalem from generation to generation. Once again, that's us in our, glorified bodies. Okay. The laws in our inward parts. Okay. Will never go off again. All right. It says, verse 21, for I will cleanse their blood, the blood of the Israelites that I have not cleansed. For Yahweh Bashem Yahushai dwelleth in Zion. So how is he going to clean that blood, Okay. Cleanse the blood. All right. There's only one way to do that. All right. And that's by the blood of him that shed it. This is the book of Numbers 35 and 33. And it reads, so ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood it defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shall it, that shed it. So what that's telling you right there, what you did to us is going to happen to you. All right. And he said he's going to do it by his people in Joel chapter 3, 19 through 21. So it is definitely our time. All right. Definitely our time. And we don't want to hear, well, that wasn't me. I had nothing to do with that. Those are my ancestors. The Lord knew you was going to say something like that. All right. And we got a scripture for that too. That's the book of Isaiah. Book of Isaiah, chapter 14, verse 22. Starting verse 21. It says, prepare slaughter for his children, for the iniquity of their fathers. Okay? Prepare slaughter for his children, for the iniquity of their fathers. Okay? So what that's telling you is, the Lord don't care if you were there or not. He's saying, prepare you for slaughter for the stuff your daddy did. All right? That's what we're going to do. All right. It says, "For I will rise up against them, saith Yahweh Bashem Yahushai of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name, no more Edom, the remnant, and son and nephew, saith Yahweh Bashem Yahushai." So yeah, you Edomite man gonna have a real tough time, you know, a real tough time, but we're gonna be in righteousness. But it's a righteousness that you've never seen before. Because there's a bunch of nerdy people, you know, a bunch of us who want to get back at you, but you know it's going to be so intense. You know, you're going to wish you were dead. This is the book of Job, chapter 11, verse 20, and it reads, "But the eyes of the wicked shall fail." All right, that's when you have no hope. Okay, it says, "But the eyes of the wicked shall fail, and they shall not escape, and their hope shall be as the giving up of the ghost." All right. So you're going to be wishing yourself that you were dead for all the stuff that, you know, we see fit to, you know, pay for, be judged on. That's what's going to happen. All right. So, yeah, you're going to have to pay for that. And for that woman, you know, Viola Fletcher, hey, you know, you're in the spirit world now. But definitely know for sure at some point, you know, the whole nation of Israel is going to be avenged. Thus saith the Lord. All right. So with that, I hope this lesson was edifying to the elect body of the nation of Israel. Once again, going to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rahakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of great millstone who rule well and teaching me this 100% truth. Salutations to them and my fellow Akim who labor in this truth week in and week out on the highways and byways. Also, salutations to the hopeful elect of the scattered 12 tribes of Israel, scattered to the four corners of the earth, that be like to the spirit word, also known as the Israelite foreigners, who are your so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. To you, I say Shalom, Kwam Yasharallah, Abab Abba. Shalom, we got next.